Well, thank you for joining us here for video 11 of the series Seriously, which is just going through the book What If Jesus Was Serious by Skye Jethani, which is like a slow walk leisurely through the Sermon on the Mount. You know, we're stopping to smell some flowers, looking at the sights, ruminating a little bit. And so this is kind of what we're doing. So with this video, we're actually just zeroing in on just one verse.
Yep.
We're going to take one verse, and this is the verse. So whatever you wish that others would do to you, do also to them, for this is the law and the prophets. So yeah, we're just like, it's really, we've come off of just Jesus talking about a lot about establishing God's character, you know, the idea of just, hey, ask and seek and knock. And he loves us. He wants to be like a good parent and give us these good things that are going to be beneficial for us. And then it's like he turns the focus on those who are listening. And basically, here's the challenge. You know, we should treat other people in the way we would want to be treated.
And to his particular audience, which was Jewish, he references the law and the prophets because they had like 600 and some laws they were trying to keep up with all the time. And Jesus is saying, this basically sums it all up, what the law is saying and what the prophets are saying in this one little sentence.
Well, yeah, this is definitely supposed to kind of make us recall a very similar thing where he would say, you know, all the laws hang on, you know, love God. And here's the second one that's just as important as this first one, and love others. It's taking us into that sort of idea. And now this verse has been called what's the golden rule.
Yep.
And it actually, for those who aren't even followers of Jesus, easily subscribe to and do subscribe to. A lot of people would say this is we like this. This makes sense. They may say we don't believe in Jesus or anything like that, but we really like this right here. This is something we want to live our lives around. And actually, Skye points out that other religions very much have a similar practice as this.
Yep.
And predicated on the rule of ahimsa. I'm going to say this again. Ahimsa,
there you go.
Which really means, do not harm and cause no injury to a living creature, which is good. Like this is a good thing to live by and all that. It's very commendable.
Yeah. So the Jewish version of that before Jesus was a Rabbi Hillel. Scott McKnight talks about it in one of his books, where his version of that was, what is hateful to you, do not do to your neighbor.
Yeah. So
it's the inverse, but the idea is
it's
the same.
Still very much there. So even the fact that Jesus would be saying this, I think we could see through all this sort of stuff. This wouldn't be this out of left field kind of idea, but
what's the difference though between what Rabbi Hillel is saying and what Jesus is saying?
Well, I think it really leads one more to an act of love.
Yeah.
And I think that's the big difference. Like, and again, all the other things are commendable. Like, please don't harm other living creatures, and you know, and don't, if that's hateful, don't then go do it.
But I could be very passive in that.
That very much.
I could walk by and not help somebody who needs help.
Well, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think it's a way to basically almost, it could be a way to look to inaction,
right? As
opposed to where God is doing the thing. Hey, no, do something. He's active in this, and love is something that very much needs action.
Mm-hmm. And I think Jesus made that point in the parable of the Good Samaritan.
Yeah, absolutely.
And where he made the bad guy, actually, the Samaritan, who Jews didn't like, actually the hero of the story, and the supposed good guys, the priest and the temple worker, they adhered to this law. They didn't do the hateful thing, but they were so self-preservationist that they didn't stop to help the guy.
That's right. And so, as much as these other things would be good, we missed out on the command, which is to love.
Yeah.
And so I think it can, the many questions that could lead us to and how we want to live our life. One of them could be, I wouldn't want that done to me, so I'm not going to do that to others.
Yeah.
Again, there's nothing wrong with that. That is commendable, and we would recommend.
Yeah.
Probably shouldn't. Hey,
it's a good start.
It's a good start
down the path. Yeah.
But I think it's leading to the second question, which is I think I know where Jesus wants to go, which is the more challenging question.
Yep.
Which is the more challenging response, and that is, if I was in the same situation, how would I want to be approached? What interaction would make me feel loved, seen, valued?
Yeah, and I think that's where we drop the ball an awful lot.
Yeah.
Well, obviously, if someone's hurt or been in an accident, it's very obvious they need help. We might stop and help them. But do we go out of our way to make people feel loved or seen or valued? I know when on Sunday when we were at our church service, I made the comment about people reviewing their day, and I kind of worked this idea in there by saying, think back over your interactions with people for the day, and when you think of those interactions, were people better off because of their interaction with you or not? And if it's not, then maybe they didn't feel loved or seen or valued, and you just ignored them.
Yeah.
Which I'm not going to judge anybody because I've done the same thing.
Oh yeah,
many times. Yeah.
This is convicting.
Yeah, it sure is.
I think as I was thinking through this, another way to really look at this, because I think we can take this. We do need to take this very seriously, but almost a little too literal. I think another way to maybe approach this is, how would I want to, because how I may want to be approached may not be exactly the way someone else would want to be. So I sometimes want to reframe that second question to the idea of like, I would want to be approached in a way that is helpful for me. So how can I approach someone in a way that might be helpful for them?
Yeah.
I think that's a big thing. I think of it like the idea of gift giving.
Yeah.
Like giving me a gift of a record.
Yep.
Is great. Now, if I gave you the gift of a record, you'd be like, thanks, I love music, but I don't listen to records.
I don't have a record.
Yeah, well, it's like, thanks, this is a good gift for you. I'm like, I know the thing you need. And it's like, and so it's like, as much as like, hey, I appreciate it, but I like woodworking things.
Yeah.
Like there's that.
And I think that really comes back to sort of the community idea again, is that you may not know these things unless you are friends with somebody or in a relationship that is closer than just occasional to know what their interests are, what their love languages are, how they're going to feel loved and appreciated, whether they want you to give them a gift or whether they just want to hang out.
And I think there becomes that thing. It's just like, I know I feel love when people know what I appreciate.
Yep.
Therefore, I know I can show love by knowing what they appreciate. And I think this leads us to the idea of is our conscience really can guide us in how we treat others. It is that thing that in us are to know like, hey, you know what? I don't think I would feel very valued or loved if this was the approach. So I know I shouldn't approach that way. The how-to in there. And so this is an encouragement not to really merely tolerate others, especially those who are different than us.
Yep.
But it leads us to a place of wanting to see all flourish.
I think that in addition to our conscience, I think, emotional intelligence is, I don't know if that's the right word, or emotional sensitivity maybe, is that obviously your conscience can let you know there's something wrong. But especially if we have similar values, excuse me. But I think just being able to look at somebody and recognize their emotion. Are they receiving this well? Yep. Are they upset by what I said? Are they sad by what I said? Does it make them feel happy? Those are the things that we're not always in tune with. Yeah. And I think that if we really do want to see people flourish, we have to get to the point where we're paying a little more attention maybe to our interactions with them.
Yeah. And I think we again look at our conscience because that would mean something to us.
Yeah.
This absolutely, and we can't. I think it's something we need to talk a lot about because this is important even throughout the Sermon on the Mount, but even just all of what Jesus talks about is that this absolutely also points to enemy love.
Yeah, because I'm sure it was hard to hear when Jesus said it, love your enemies.
Yeah.
And yet this part isn't saying love your enemies, but it is. indirectly.
Yeah. Well, it's teaching us how we would approach them.
Yeah.
And, hey, I probably wouldn't want to I'd want to be approached this way. Maybe I should approach them that way as well.
Yeah.
And I think let's lose the word enemy, because I think sometimes that can give a certain picture. Let's use the word people we find difficult.
Yeah.
Because we could find those anywhere.
Yeah.
They're in our families. Right?
Yep.
They're in our communities where they're at work.
Mm-hmm.
And we can find that those are the people that we definitely, I think, can struggle with how to treat with love.
I heard a good definition one time that said it's anybody that you would think in your mind that if something bad happened to them, you would feel good about it.
Yeah, I think that's definitely
or
it.
You would say they deserve that, or you wouldn't say anything out loud. You wouldn't say it to their face. You wouldn't even gossip about them per se, but you are rejoicing inside your head when something bad happens to them.
Or simply this, like even if it's not even that, when they talk, you have to fight the eye roll.
Yeah.
You have to fight the snappy comeback or something like that as they talk. And like, yeah, this is a place of conviction. I know I've made many mistakes in this area.
And Jesus' time, it's easy to think of enemies as the Romans were their enemies because they were carrying around swords and shields and were policing the neighborhoods, and everybody hated them because they were occupying their land. So that's a very clear definition of enemy. And I'm sure in the wars that are being waged today, there's each other side feels the other is the enemy. But here, us sitting in this room, in our culture right here in our city, it's hard for us to figure out who is our enemy.
Yeah.
So this is a good way to approach it.
And I think this also leads to, Jesus has previously talked about self-awareness.
Yep.
And this does lead to self-awareness too. It's just the self-awareness of how I would want to be treated.
Yep.
And we've thought about that. I'm sure a lot of us can say we probably have thought about that. Maybe we haven't thought enough about it.
Yeah.
And it's okay, if I would want to be treated this way, then I need to be better at treating others, in that way. So it starts with this self-awareness in order to extend love. Mm-hmm. And, therefore, if we take more time in self-awareness, it becomes more of that default response to people. And maybe not, especially, to those we find difficult, it becomes more a default response to respond in some sort of love in a way that, okay, you know what, naturally they drive me nuts.
Yeah.
But here's how I can respond in a way, because I know that how I've been responding, I sure wouldn't like that.
Yeah, and I
people
think
that are that way to me.
This reminds me of our past podcast where we were talking about do not judge, and we were talking about self-awareness there. I think this is the part where we can use this exact question here when we're trying to help somebody else see or become self-aware when they aren't self-aware. So instead of accusing them or judging them, we can ask them the question. In that last interaction with that person, is that how you would want to be treated? And then the light bulb might go on for them without saying, you shouldn't have said that to that person, or, you were really angry there. And which is typically, I think, for people we know well, in particular, we tend to come across with a statement of you were this or you did this wrong. Yeah. Whereas asking a question, is that how you would really want to be treated? I think is a kinder, gentler way of helping people come to a place of self-awareness.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that idea that growing in default settings is actually a great way to define what maturity is. And that's what Michael Hendricks and stuff like in his book, he does talk about, growing character and maturity really stems from that automatic response system in all situations. Like, is that becomes a better way of doing it and not reactive, but responding in a loving way, in a helpful way. Like that is that's when our character and maturity is growing when we see that. And so Jesus is forming maturity and character in those he's listening to. And this is kind of the idea of how we love other people's, how especially the difficult ones. And it grows us and gives us context to what love is. It's one thing to say, hey, love others. Yeah. But here's a great context. Like how do I do that? Well, Why don't you just start with treat them in a way you want to be treated?
Yeah.
Oh, hey, I can.
Yeah,
That's attainable, or
Yeah.
that gives me a thing. And then we don't need to be biblical scholars or theological professors. Kind of like, okay, when God says to love others, I want to just examine this. He's just like, hey, just look at yourself.
Yep. And I think that's kind of the point Jesus is making, or he makes his point in a way that it's attainable by everyone. He's not giving you a theological discussion or a biblical scholarly term paper on why this is good or bad. He's just saying this is something we can all do based on something we can all relate to.
Yeah.
So thanks again for our listening and watching with us today. We hope that you found it useful and helpful what we've been talking about. And again, just to help us continue to think about it and to process some of these ideas, we've put some questions for reflection in the show notes and some list of some of the resources we've been talking about. And you'll be able to find those. And again, if you're part of our church community, you can the groups that get together are called missional communities. You can get together with them and talk over the questions. If you're not, they're good to look at yourself or maybe with a friend, just to be able to continue to think about these things and learn them, but more than that, to actually put them into practice. So we're glad you joined us again. We hope you'll join us for the next one. And to help us keep making content like this, please like and subscribe this video.